A struggling single mother takes a bold step to secure her son's future, but stumbles upon a life-altering secret. Leah, a single mother and refugee in Qatar, faced relentless hardships. Every day was a battle to provide for her 3-year-old son, Youssef, while trying to keep a roof over their heads. She worked as a waitress at a small cafe frequented by tourists, but her earnings barely covered their needs. Her world nearly crumbled when the cafe owner announced he had to reduce her working hours. Panic set in. How would she feed Youssef? Desperation pushed her to seek a solution, any solution. One afternoon, while clearing tables, Leah noticed a man seated alone in the corner. There was something about him, an air of power, mystery. He wore a pristine white robe, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Whispers floated around the cafe. His name was Khaled Al-Fahim, one of the wealthiest and most elusive figures in Qatar. As the cafe closed, a coworker handed her an envelope. "Mr. Al-Fahim asked me to give you this," he said before walking away. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a note. Leah Roshan. "I have an offer that could change your life. Meet me tomorrow at 8 p.m. at the address below. Come alone." Khaled Al-Fahim. Her heart pounded. An offer from someone like him could be a lifeline or a trap. But with Youssef's well-being at stake, Leah decided to take the risk. The following night, after tucking Youssef into bed, she arrived at the address, a grand estate on the outskirts of the city. A butler led her into a lavish room where Khaled awaited, composed and unreadable. "Leah, thank you for coming," he said in a deep, steady voice. "I've heard about your struggles and believe I can help." Leah swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Khaled leaned forward slightly. "I need a dancer." "A dancer?" She frowned in confusion. "Yes," he confirmed. "For private performances, my guests appreciate art and tradition. In return, I offer a generous sum, enough to ensure you and your son never struggle again." Her mind raced. The offer sounded simple, yet something felt off. "Why me?" she asked cautiously. His gaze held hers. "You have a rare spark, and you're beautiful." A chill ran down her spine. "What are the conditions?" "Simple," he replied. "You will dance only for me and my guests. No physical contact. Everything remains professional, as stated in the contract." He slid a document toward her. Leah scanned the clauses, each one more surreal than the last. Anxiety gripped her, but the image of Youssef's hungry face surfaced in her mind. Without further hesitation, she signed. "Welcome to my world, Leah," Khaled said, with a faint smile, one that hinted at both promise and peril. She had no way of knowing that this decision wouldn't just provide for her son, it would change their lives forever. The following evening, Leah returned to the grand estate, a mix of nerves and determination settling in her chest. The contract she had signed felt heavier now that she was about to perform for the first time. Yet, the thought of Youssef, safe and asleep with a full stomach, kept her steady. She was led to an opulent chamber where a set of traditional dance garments awaited her, an emerald dress embroidered with gold and delicate veils that shimmered under the chandelier's glow. In silence, Leah dressed, fastening a pair of anklet bells, their soft chime filling the room like a quiet promise. When she was finally summoned, she followed the butler down a long corridor to a grand hall adorned with luxurious tapestries and rich Persian rugs. Khaled sat at the center, accompanied by only 2 guests, both men of distinguished bearing. With a subtle motion of his hand, he signaled for her to begin. The music started, a slow, hypnotic melody that swayed like the desert wind. Leah took a deep breath and began to move. Her arms glided smoothly, the veils flowing like silk on water, while the soft jingling of her anklet bells set the rhythm. Every movement was deliberate yet fluid, a silent conversation spoken through grace. Khaled watched her intently, his face unreadable, but something flickered in his gaze. Curiosity, admiration, perhaps even something he himself had yet to understand. Leah danced not just as a performer, but as a storyteller. With every turn, she relived her struggles, her resilience, her love for her son. Strength and vulnerability intertwined in her movements, and though she uttered no words, she knew she was being understood. As the final note faded, Leah lowered herself into a respectful bow. A heavy silence hung in the air before it was broken by the slow, deliberate sound of Khaled's applause. His guests followed, murmuring words of approval. "Impressive," Khaled finally said as he stood. "You've exceeded my expectations." Leah remained composed, despite the praise. "Thank you, Mr. Khaled," she responded firmly, before turning to leave. Before she could exit, Khaled approached, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "You did well tonight. Continue like this, and this arrangement will be beneficial for both of us." Leah simply nodded, eager to retreat to the solitude of her assigned quarters. As she made her way back, she unexpectedly crossed paths with a striking woman. Her sharp features and piercing eyes carried an air of authority, and the way she scrutinized Leah made it clear she was not a friend. Sophia, Khaled's cousin, regarded her with thinly veiled disdain. "So, you're Khaled's dancer," she remarked, her voice cool with sarcasm. "I hope you know your place." Leah met her gaze without wavering. "My place is wherever my son is safe and well-fed." Sophia raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the bold response. "We'll see how long that lasts." Leah refused to let the hostility shake her. She had expected opposition, but nothing would deter her from her purpose. Later, in the solitude of her room, she sat in front of the mirror, carefully removing her accessories. Her reflection revealed a woman exhausted yet unwavering in her resolve. The thought of Yusuf brought a small smile to her lips. Meanwhile, downstairs, Khaled remained alone in the grand hall. His gaze lingered on the empty space where Leah had danced just moments before, lost in thought. There was something about her, something that intrigued him in a way he couldn't ignore. The third night arrived swiftly. By now, Leah was growing accustomed to the palace's lavish surroundings. Yet, no matter how luxurious, she knew she was stepping further into an unfamiliar and potentially dangerous world. This time, the hall was even more magnificent, illuminated by the glow of towering crystal chandeliers. Khaled sat alone, a notable absence of guests. The change surprised Leah, but she kept her thoughts to herself. Adjusting her veils, she waited for the music to begin. The melody started, soft as a whispering breeze. She let the rhythm guide her, her movements precise, yet effortless. The silence in the room was almost oppressive, broken only by the delicate chime of her anklet bells. Khaled's gaze remained locked on her, dark and unreadable, absorbing every turn, every subtle shift. As the final note faded, Leah offered her customary bow. Khaled studied her for a long moment before rising and stepping forward. "You dance as if you carry the weight of 1,000 stories," he murmured. And for the first time, Leah wasn't sure whether he was speaking about the dance or about her. Khaled's voice was low, almost unreadable. Leah swallowed hard, steadying herself. "My story doesn't matter. I'm here to fulfill the contract." Khaled raised an eyebrow as if he hadn't expected such a direct response. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Sometimes, a contract is more than just words on paper," he murmured, before turning away. A shiver ran down Leah's spine. His words echoed in her mind as she left the hall, but before she could dwell on them for too long, she found herself face to face with Sophia once again. The woman blocked her path, her cold gaze filled with something between amusement and contempt. "You think you know Khaled?" she scoffed. "Don't be fooled. He's a man of many secrets." "I'm not interested in his secrets," Leah replied firmly. keeping her voice calm. Sophia let out a sharp, knowing laugh. Ignorance is dangerous, especially for someone like you. Before Leah could respond, Sophia walked away, leaving a thick tension in the air. That night, as Leah prepared for bed, a faint sound reached her ears. Footsteps in the hallway outside her room. Curiosity stirred within her, and she carefully opened the door just enough to see Khaled disappearing down a secluded corridor of the palace. Something about his movements intrigued her. Quietly, she followed at a distance, keeping herself hidden in the shadows. He entered a room, and though she couldn't see inside, she could hear muffled voices. She listened carefully. Khaled's voice was firm but restrained. "She cannot know. Not yet." Leah strained to hear more, but the rest was lost. Still, those words planted a seed of doubt in her mind. What was he hiding? Why had he really chosen her for this role? As Khaled finally left the room, Leah hurried back to her quarters, her mind racing. She took deep breaths, trying to calm herself, but one thing was certain. Something was being kept from her. Something that could change everything. The next morning, Khaled invited her to an informal meeting in the palace garden. Dressed in lighter clothing, he seemed more at ease, though his eyes still held an unreadable depth. They walked slowly along the garden paths, surrounded by fragrant flowers. "Why did you accept my contract?" he asked. Leah hesitated for a moment before answering. "My son means everything to me. No matter what I have to do, I'll do it to give him a better life." Khaled nodded slightly, as if he had expected her answer. "A mother's love is powerful, but I wonder, how much are you willing to sacrifice for him?" Leah stopped walking and met his gaze without hesitation. "Everything, to the very last part of me." A silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. She caught a flicker of something in his expression, respect, perhaps even something deeper. "Then I hope you'll never have to prove it," Khaled murmured, his tone cryptic. Before she could question him, he changed the subject and guided her back toward the palace. That night, as Leah reflected on everything that had happened, she couldn't shake the feeling that Khaled was hiding something. The uncertainty unsettled her, but she reminded herself of her purpose. Her priority was Youssef. If staying in this arrangement meant keeping her son safe, she would endure it, even if the cost was greater than she had anticipated. Elsewhere in the palace, Khaled stood by a large window, gazing at the full moon. His hands were clasped behind his back, his thoughts unreadable. He couldn't deny it. Leah was different. She disrupted the careful balance of control he had maintained for so long. She was a reminder that the past never truly remained buried. As the night deepened, their fates became more entangled, like the delicate veils Leah wore, graceful yet concealing far more than they revealed. The following morning, Leah woke early, enjoying a rare moment of peace. But it didn't last long. As she adjusted the scarf over her hair in front of the mirror, a sharp knock echoed through the door. Before she could respond, Sophia entered uninvited, her presence as cold as ever. "I see you've adapted quickly to this place," Sophia remarked, crossing her arms. "But don't be fooled. You're nothing more than a disposable piece in Khaled's game." Leah took a steady breath, refusing to be rattled. "Whatever his reasons are, they're none of your concern." Sophia stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You think you know who he is? You're chasing an illusion. Khaled will never let someone like you get close to him." Leah met her gaze, feeling quiet defiance rise within her. "I don't want to get close to him. I'm here for my son. Nothing more." Sophia's sharp laugh echoed through the room. "We'll see how long that illusion lasts." Sophia's words echoed in Leah's mind long after she had left. Later, Leah tried to push the encounter aside and focus on her dance lessons. The choreographer, a strict woman with a sharp eye for detail, corrected her every movement with precision. But no matter how much she concentrated, Sophia's lingering presence loomed over her like a shadow. Still, Leah knew she couldn't afford to falter. Every perfected step, every graceful turn, was another step toward securing Yusuf's safety. She had to succeed. That evening, Khaled hosted an intimate dinner for a select few guests. The dining hall was bathed in the warm glow of candlelight, casting soft, flickering shadows across the opulent walls. Leah was summoned once again to perform. As she stepped into the hall, she immediately noticed Sophia among the guests, her triumphant expression hinting that she had something planned. Leah took a deep breath and began to dance, pouring all her focus into every movement. The music wove through the air, creating an almost hypnotic atmosphere, but as she twirled, her eyes locked onto Khaled's. There was something unsettling about his gaze, something that seemed to look past the performance, past the dancer, and into something deeper. When the performance ended, the guests applauded politely. But before Leah could retreat, Sophia rose and walked toward Khaled, deliberately ignoring her presence. "A beautiful display, wasn't it?" Sophia remarked, her smile laced with something cold. "Yes, it was," Khaled replied evenly, though his gaze remained fixed on Leah. Sophia's expression stiffened as she noticed. She pressed her lips together before leaning in slightly. "I hope you know what you're doing, cousin. A woman like her doesn't belong in this world." Khaled turned to Sophia, his expression hardening. "And what world is that? A world where we judge without understanding?" His voice was steady but firm. "Leah has more dignity than many who walk through these doors." Sophia didn't respond immediately, but her frustration was evident in the way she held herself. Without another word, she turned on her heel and left, leaving behind a heavy silence in the room. In the days that followed, Leah did her best to avoid Sophia. But no matter where she went, the woman always seemed to be lurking nearby, watching, waiting. Then, one night, a letter appeared under her door. The message was brief, but chilling. "Be careful who you trust. Your secret could cost you dearly." Leah's stomach twisted. There was no doubt in her mind that Sophia was behind it. But how much did she know? And what exactly was she planning? Determined to protect Yusuf at all costs, Leah made a decision. She went straight to Khaled. He was in his study, surrounded by stacks of documents, his expression focused and unreadable. But as soon as she entered, he looked up. "I need to speak with you," Leah said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. Leah stood her ground. "I need to know if you can stop this, Khaled." "Of course," he said, gesturing for her to sit. Leah hesitated, but she didn't have time for formalities. "Your cousin Sophia is trying to intimidate me. I don't know what she wants, but I won't let her threats affect my son." Khaled's expression darkened, his brows knitting together. "Sophia has no authority here. I will handle her." "Can you guarantee that?" Leah pressed, her eyes burning with determination. "Because I won't risk Yusuf's safety." For a long moment, Khaled held her gaze before responding. "Leah, you have my word. As long as you are under this roof, nothing will happen to you or your son." Despite his firm tone, Leah knew it wouldn't be that simple. Sophia wasn't someone who backed down easily. That night, in a secluded part of the palace, Sophia met with a man hidden in the shadows. She handed him an envelope, her voice low and decisive. "I want her gone. Do whatever it takes." The man nodded once before vanishing into the darkness. A slow smile crept onto Sophia's lips. She was convinced that Leah's time in the palace was coming to an end. But Leah was not someone who bowed to threats. Her resolve was unshakable, her instincts as a mother sharper than ever. She wouldn't back down, no matter what came her way. Meanwhile, Khaled was beginning to see Leah differently. She wasn't just another dancer or someone passing through his life. There was something about her, an undeniable strength, something that even he couldn't ignore. Their lives, it seemed, were becoming entwined by forces beyond their control. Leah adjusted her veil with steady hands, willing herself to focus. Sophia's veiled threats still echoed in her mind, but she refused to let fear consume her. As she walked down the grand corridor toward the hall, she thought of Yusuf. Every step she took in this world of luxury and secrets was for him. Her dance was more than an art form. It was her survival. When she entered the hall, the atmosphere felt heavier than usual. Khaled sat alone in his usual spot, watching her in silence. The only sound in the room was the soft chime of the bells on her ankles as she took her place. With a subtle nod, Khaled signaled for the music to begin. The melody filled the room, hypnotic and haunting. Leah moved with precision, every step carefully measured. Yet beneath her poised exterior, her heart raced. Her mind fought to stay in the present, even as the weight of her worries threatened to overwhelm her. For her, the dance wasn't just about fulfilling a contract. It was a way to express everything she carried inside: her fear, her desperation, her unwavering hope. Khaled, on the other hand, watched her with an intensity unlike before. It was as if each movement spoke to him in ways words never could. A silent connection flickered between them, something neither of them could define, yet neither could ignore. As the final note faded, Khaled stood and approached her. He didn't speak immediately, but when he did, his voice carried something different, an understanding. "You're stronger than you seem," he said, his tone both a statement and a quiet compliment. Leah didn't know how to respond. She was here to do a job, nothing more. Yet Khaled's words unsettled her in a way she hadn't anticipated. "You dance as though you carry the weight of something much greater," he continued. "What gives you that strength?" Leah hesitated before answering. "My son. He's the reason for everything." Khaled nodded slowly, as if seeing her in a new light. "Yusuf is lucky to have you as his mother." Leah looked away, a mix of pride and vulnerability tightening in her chest. Before she could say anything, Khaled added, "Sophia will no longer be a problem. I promise to protect you and your son, and I intend to keep my word." There was sincerity in his voice, but Leah knew words weren't enough. Sophia was dangerous. Leah would have to stay one step ahead. Later that night, a sudden knock at her door sent her heart racing. A servant stood there, breathless. "Madam, come quickly. It's your son." Leah ran to Yusuf's room, her pulse hammering. She found him curled beneath the blankets, his small body trembling with fever. Desperation took hold as she knelt beside him, pressing a cool cloth to his forehead and whispering soft reassurances. Moments later, Khaled appeared in the doorway, his expression tense. "What's happening?" Leah looked up, panic laced in her voice. "He has a fever." And in that instant, nothing else mattered. Leah's voice quivered with urgency. "I need to get him to a doctor." Khaled didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, he summoned one of his aides. "Prepare the car immediately. We're taking them to the best hospital in the city." Leah glanced at Khaled, a mix of surprise and gratitude flickering in her eyes. Despite everything, he had acted without delay. Minutes later, they were speeding through the city streets, Leah clutching Yusuf's tiny hand, her heart pounding with fear. At the hospital, the doctors acted quickly, examining Yusuf with care. After what felt like an eternity, the doctor approached them with a reassuring smile. "It's just a high fever. With rest and plenty of fluids, he'll recover in no time," the doctor assured them before discharging Yusuf. Back at the palace, Leah gently laid Yusuf in his bed, her eyes never leaving his peaceful face as he slept. Khaled stood silently in the doorway, his presence quiet and unobtrusive, as if he understood the sacredness of the moment. "Thank you," Leah murmured, not turning to face him, "for everything." "There's no need to thank me," Khaled replied softly. "I did what anyone would do." Leah let out a small, weary sigh. Not everyone would. Khaled stepped into the room but maintained a respectful distance. Youssef is important to you. That makes him important to me. Leah finally looked up, her expression a blend of confusion and curiosity. There was something different in Khaled's eyes, a sincerity tinged with a sadness she hadn't noticed before. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked, breaking the heavy silence. He hesitated, his gaze distant for a moment. "Maybe because you remind me of something I lost a long time ago." The weight of his words hung between them, thick with unspoken truths. Leah didn't know how to respond. Sensing that Khaled was revealing a part of himself he kept hidden from the world. That night, sleep eluded her. Khaled's words circled in her thoughts, mixing with her own fears and uncertainties. She was acutely aware of how fragile her position in the palace was, yet she could feel that something deeper was beginning to unfold. Downstairs, Khaled retreated to his study. In the quiet solitude, he pulled out an old photograph from a drawer. The picture captured a smiling woman cradling a small child. His thumb traced over the woman's face, his eyes shadowed by memories. "I promised I'd never let this happen again," he whispered, tucking the photo away before dimming the lights. It was as though fate had bound their lives together in a tapestry woven with secrets and silent vows. The next morning, the palace's golden light glinted off the marble floors as Leah walked down the grand corridor. Her footsteps echoed, but her mind was lost in a storm of thoughts about Youssef and Khaled. The ever-present worry for her son was now tangled with Khaled's haunting confession. "You remind me of something I lost." Turning a corner, Leah nearly collided with Sophia, who was dressed impeccably but wore a scowl as sharp as a blade. "You've done well to catch Khaled's attention?" Sophia sneered, her smile dripping with venom. "But don't be deceived, Leah. He may appear generous, but he's ruthless when it comes to preserving his reputation." The next morning, Jonathan arrived at the office early. The weight of regret pressed down on him, but he knew he couldn't keep avoiding the truth. This wasn't about confronting Evelyn or trying to convince the board. He needed to confront himself. Sitting alone in his office, surrounded by reports and notes, he found himself analyzing his own choices more critically than ever before. He recalled Evelyn's words during the last meeting, how she had challenged his entire outlook, not just as a leader, but as a person. "You still see this company as nothing more than a machine for profit," she had told him. And now, for the first time, he truly understood the weight of that statement. What did leadership really mean? Had he ever actually understood it? Looking around his empty office, he realized something unsettling. Perhaps true leadership had never been a part of his life. Maybe he had just been playing a role all along, acting as the ruthless, calculating businessman who measured success purely in numbers. But now, standing at the edge of losing everything, he could see the flaw in that mindset. Leadership had to be more than just numbers on a balance sheet. For the first time, he saw the people behind those numbers, the employees, the partners, the communities that depended on the decisions he made. Later that afternoon, Evelyn appeared at his office door. Her expression was serious, but there was something different this time, an absence of the cold detachment she had carried before. Maybe, for the first time, she was seeing his vulnerability. Jonathan, exhausted from the endless battles, decided to speak with complete honesty. "Evelyn," he started, his voice uncertain, "I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I know my choices have hurt people in ways I can't undo. And I understand if you think there's no point in me even trying anymore." She watched him carefully, arms crossed, but there was a slight shift in her posture, an indication that she was at least willing to listen. "It's a start," she said, her tone softer than before. "But admitting mistakes isn't enough. What do you plan to do about it?" Jonathan inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the question. He had thought about it, but he didn't have a clear answer yet. "I don't know," he admitted. "I just know I can't keep going down the same path." Evelyn nodded slowly. "That's true. But real change isn't just an idea. It's something you have to practice every day. Leadership isn't about always being in control. It's about learning to listen. Are you willing to do that? He swallowed hard, his pride fighting against his instinct to say yes. But he knew the truth. "I am," he said, "but I don't think I can do it alone." For the first time in a long time, Evelyn gave a small, knowing smile. No one can, Jonathan. That's why real leadership isn't about standing alone. It's about trusting others. It's about building something bigger than yourself. Her words echoed in his mind. For years, he had believed that being in control meant handling everything on his own, that relying on others was a weakness. But now, faced with his own shortcomings, he realized the truth. Trust wasn't a weakness. It was the very thing he had been missing. After a long pause, Evelyn spoke again. "If you're serious about changing, there's a way forward, but it won't be easy. And it will require you to unlearn everything you think you know about leadership." Jonathan looked up at her, finally feeling something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. "I'm ready," he said. "Tell me how I can help." That same week, Evelyn took Jonathan to visit a social initiative the company had invested in as part of its recovery efforts. The project focused on empowering women in vulnerable situations, helping them build the skills and confidence to enter the workforce. For Jonathan, who had spent his entire career in high-rise offices and luxury boardrooms, stepping into this environment felt uncomfortably real. At one of the meetings, he found himself sitting among women whose lives were worlds apart from his own. Single mothers struggling to provide for their children, survivors of abuse trying to rebuild, individuals fighting to break free from cycles of poverty. As he listened to their stories, something shifted within him. This wasn't about profit margins or quarterly reports. This was about people, about lives, about the real impact of every decision made at the top. For the first time, Jonathan understood. Leadership wasn't about control. It was about responsibility. And he was finally ready to embrace it. As Jonathan stood amidst the crowd, an older woman with silver hair and deep, knowing eyes approached him. "You're Jonathan Hale, aren't you?" she asked, her voice steady. "The man behind the company supporting this project?" Caught off guard, he hesitated before nodding. "Yes, that's me." The woman studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "My son worked for you a few years back," she said. "He gave years of his life to your company, only to be let go without a word. It broke him, you know. He lost his motivation, his sense of purpose." A heavy knot formed in Jonathan's chest. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't know." She shook her head, her expression calm but firm. "Maybe you never cared to know. But seeing you here today, I wonder, maybe things are changing. I just hope that change is real." Her words hit him harder than he expected. For years, he had made decisions without thinking about the lives they affected. He had been exactly the kind of leader Evelyn had described, one who saw people as numbers rather than individuals with stories, struggles, and dreams. Back at the office, still shaken by the encounter, Jonathan sought out Evelyn. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for bringing me there. Today, I finally understood what you meant." Evelyn met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no coldness, only understanding. "This is just the beginning, Jonathan," she replied. "Change takes time and action, but maybe, over time, you'll realize that real leadership is about service, not control." That same week, Evelyn encouraged him to attend a meeting with the social project team. It was a crucial opportunity for him to listen, to truly hear the voices of those working on the ground. Walking into the meeting room, he felt the weight of the team's stares. Some eyes held skepticism, others curiosity. He knew he had a lot to prove and little time to regain their trust. Evelyn signaled for him to speak, but for once, he hesitated. Maybe, he thought, this was a moment to listen rather than talk. The meeting began with team members sharing their experiences and concerns about the project's progress. One of them, Mark, a passionate and dedicated young man, spoke about the struggles they faced. The biggest challenge, Mark explained, is the constant pressure to deliver quick results. But this isn't just another business deal. This is about people's lives. We need stability. We need commitment. Jonathan listened intently, absorbing every word. For the first time, he truly saw what Evelyn and the team had been fighting for. This wasn't about short-term gains or impressive numbers on a report. It was about building something lasting, something meaningful. And for the first time, he realized he wanted to understand, not just manage. After the meeting, Jonathan made a decision. He wasn't going to just oversee the project from the top. He was going to immerse himself in it, not as a leader, as a learner. He needed to see firsthand how the choices made in a boardroom affected lives in the real world. Evelyn accompanied him on visits to the communities benefiting from the project. On one of those visits, he met Julia, a young mother whose life had been transformed by the training program. Tears welled in her eyes as she spoke about the opportunity she had been given. "This program gave me a chance," she said. "A real chance to support my daughter, to build a future." As Jonathan listened, something shifted inside him. For the first time in his life, he understood. This was what leadership was meant to be. Not power, not control, but impact. As Jonathan listened to Julia's story, a lump formed in his throat. For so long, he had seen business through numbers and reports, failing to realize the real lives impacted by his decisions. These weren't just figures on a spreadsheet. These were people with struggles, hopes, and dreams. Now, standing among them, he finally understood what Evelyn had been fighting for. The true measure of success wasn't in profit margins, but in the individual transformations of each person touched by the work they were doing. Back at the office, still processing everything, Jonathan found Evelyn. This time his voice was steady, his words filled with a newfound determination. "You were right," he admitted. "I always saw this as just another tool for expansion, a way to rebuild my reputation and climb back to the top. But today, I realized how wrong I was." Evelyn studied him, weighing his words carefully. "So what do you plan to do now?" He took a deep breath, choosing his response carefully. "I want to learn," he said. "I want to do this the right way, to serve, to truly see the impact of what we're building. I want every person involved in these projects to find something I never had. Real leadership." For the first time, Evelyn saw something different in his eyes. Genuine sincerity. "Then start proving it," she said simply. "With every decision, every conversation, show us that change isn't just a promise, but something real." In the weeks that followed, Jonathan threw himself into the work, immersing himself in every aspect of the projects. He was no longer just a businessman overseeing a venture. He was learning from the people on the ground, following each initiative closely, understanding its challenges and victories. Slowly, his role began to shift. He wasn't the boss giving orders anymore. He became someone who listened, who sought to understand, who wanted to serve rather than control. At first, the board remained skeptical, but they started to notice the subtle changes. He was more open to feedback, less impulsive in his decisions. Evelyn, too, saw his progress. She remained cautious, knowing that true change wasn't immediate, but rather a continuous process. She wanted him to understand that leadership wasn't just about moments. It was about commitment over time. By the end of the month, Jonathan felt something he hadn't in a long time: peace. For the first time, he didn't see the project as a stepping stone for personal gain, but as a mission that touched countless lives. One afternoon, as Evelyn passed by his office, he stood and stopped her. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere, "for not giving up on me, even when I refused to see it." Evelyn gave him a small smile. "Leadership is a long journey, Jonathan. But if you truly commit to it, you'll come to understand its real value." Her words stayed with him. For the first time, he felt ready, not just to lead, but to grow. Jonathan dedicated himself to the project with an intensity that surprised everyone around him. In the weeks following the company's crisis, he committed to learning every detail, not just about finances, but about the communities they served. He attended weekly visits, engaged with the team, and understood the weight of each decision. No longer was the project just an investment. It had become his mission. For Jonathan, this was more than about winning back the board's trust. It was about rebuilding something far more important, his own sense of purpose. And Evelyn, watching from a distance, was the first to see just how much he had changed. In the months that followed, Evelyn observed Jonathan from a distance, curious to see if this transformation would last. At first, she had doubts, but over time, his continued presence at the project, his thoughtful questions, and his genuine effort to listen and understand proved that his commitment was real. As his determination became evident, so did the board's renewed respect for him. What had initially been routine appearances at project meetings soon became a central part of his schedule. Jonathan began learning people's names, understanding their stories, and tracking their progress. It was a world completely different from the high-stakes business meetings and elite networking events that had once consumed his time. During one of his visits, he had a long conversation with Anna, a middle-aged woman who had lost her job but found a fresh start through the project. She spoke with a sincerity that deeply moved him, sharing the struggles she had endured and how the initiative had restored her dignity. "This isn't just a job for me, Mr. Hale," Anna said, emotion filling her voice. "It's a second chance. For the first time, I feel like someone believes in my potential." Jonathan felt his throat tighten. This wasn't just about providing opportunities. This was about rebuilding lives. Every story he heard reinforced the truth Evelyn had been trying to show him all along. His commitment grew stronger. He wanted to be worthy of the trust these people placed in the project. And more than anything, he wanted to prove, through action, that he truly cared. The project was no longer just a strategy on paper. It had become something real, something meaningful. As the results of the initiative became more visible, so did the company's reputation. The board, once skeptical of Jonathan's ability to lead responsibly, began to recognize his efforts. At board meetings, Jonathan presented progress updates with a humility that was new to him. Gone was the overconfident businessman who once sought recognition for personal gain. Instead, he shifted the focus to the team's work, highlighting Evelyn's contributions as crucial to the success of the initiative. The data spoke for itself. The project was making a tangible difference, and the board members didn't hide their satisfaction. During one meeting, Mr. Haynes, the chairman of the board, addressed Jonathan directly. "I have to admit, Jonathan," he said, "you're handling this project with a level of commitment that many of us didn't expect. This pilot initiative is proving to be a success, and I believe we can expand it further." Jonathan gave a quiet, appreciative smile, feeling the weight of those words. He knew that Evelyn had been an invaluable mentor in this journey, and in every meeting, he made sure to acknowledge her role. But something had begun to shift. What had once been just professional admiration was turning into something more. The more time Jonathan spent working alongside Evelyn, the more he began to see her differently. She wasn't just an intelligent and capable leader. She was a force of nature, a woman with an unwavering sense of purpose, someone who didn't just manage the project, but became an essential part of it. He saw it in the way she spoke with the people they helped, in the attention she gave to every detail, in the respect she earned effortlessly. Evelyn had a quiet strength that inspired those around her. During a visit to one of the project sites, Jonathan and Evelyn attended a small gathering organized by the beneficiaries, a simple celebration to thank the team for their support. Jonathan watched as Evelyn moved through the crowd, interacting with people with a warmth and sincerity that deeply touched him. She belonged here, and the people knew it. Watching her, Jonathan felt something stir inside him. As the evening wound down, Jonathan offered to walk Evelyn back to the office. The streets were quiet, and for the first time, he felt the urge to understand her beyond the work they did together. "Evelyn," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I've always admired your dedication to this project. But what led you to be so deeply involved?" She smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up her face. "Jonathan, I've always believed in doing something bigger than myself," she said. "I grew up seeing people around me struggle, people who just needed a chance. That left a mark on me, working on something that helps others rebuild their lives. It's the most meaningful thing I could ever do." Her words struck him in a way he hadn't expected. For so long, he had viewed the project as a way to rebuild his reputation, a way to prove himself. But for Evelyn, this was never about personal gain. It was about something deeper. And in that moment, Jonathan finally understood what truly drove the extraordinary woman walking beside him. In the weeks that followed, Jonathan and Evelyn's collaboration grew stronger. What had once been a professional partnership built on tension and caution transformed into something else, something built on trust and mutual respect. They strategized together, shared ideas, and supported each other through every challenge. But as they spent more time working side by side, Jonathan couldn't ignore the realization forming in his heart. Something had changed, and it wasn't just about leadership anymore. Jonathan didn't just admire Evelyn, he was beginning to fall in love with her. The realization caught him off guard. He had always been reserved, even skeptical about mixing personal relationships with work. Yet now, he found himself constantly thinking about Evelyn, looking for excuses to be near her, finding joy in the way she smiled. She wasn't just a colleague, she was someone who challenged him, inspired him, and made him want to be better. One evening, after a long meeting, they remained in the office, discussing the future of the project. What had started as a professional conversation slowly drifted into something more personal. Jonathan took the opportunity to express his gratitude. "Evelyn, I owe you so much," he said sincerely. "Everything I've learned these past few months, I wouldn't have gotten here without you. Before, I thought success was about control and expansion. But you taught me that the real value is in building something meaningful." Evelyn looked at him, surprised by his words. "I'm glad to know this meant something to you, Jonathan. Seeing this change in you has been one of the most rewarding things I've experienced." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, there was a quiet tension between them. Something unspoken, yet undeniably present. Jonathan felt the urge to move closer, but he hesitated. He didn't want to cross a boundary that could risk their professional relationship. But at the same time, he knew what he felt for Evelyn was real. As the days passed, Jonathan found himself drawn to Evelyn more and more. He noticed the small things, the way she lit up when speaking about something that moved her, how effortlessly she inspired those around her, the unwavering conviction in her voice when defending the project's purpose. Evelyn wasn't just someone he admired. She was someone he deeply respected, someone who brought meaning to his life in a way no one ever had before. One night, after working late in the office, he let something slip. "You know," he said absent-mindedly, "you're one of the most incredible people I've ever met." Evelyn laughed softly, a bit surprised by his sincerity. "Thank you, Jonathan," she said. "But I think you've changed a lot too. And honestly, I admire the person you're becoming." Her words struck something deep within him. That was the moment he realized. This wasn't just fleeting admiration or attraction. This was real. He wasn't just in love with Evelyn. He wanted to build something with her. Not just in their work, but in life. As the days went on, their connection deepened. Their professional partnership evolved into something more. Something neither of them had expected, yet both of them felt. Jonathan, once driven by ego and ambition, now found himself opening up to Evelyn in ways he never had with anyone before. With her, he felt lighter, more alive, more complete. And Evelyn felt the same. She had watched Jonathan transform, not just as a businessman, but as a person. His change wasn't just an act, it was genuine, and that drew her in more than she ever expected. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan found ways to spend more time with her. He invited her to lunch after meetings, suggested evening walks after long workdays, and started conversations that drifted beyond work, conversations about life, fears, and dreams. Slowly, the line between professional and personal blurred, and their connection grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, after an intense day working on the project, they remained in the office, reviewing reports late into the night. The dim lighting, the quiet stillness of the space, it created an intimacy neither of them could ignore. They sat close, their arms almost touching. Jonathan could feel the warmth of her presence beside him, and an overwhelming sense of tenderness washed over him. "I wanted to thank you," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. "For everything, for pushing me to be better, for believing in me, even when I didn't deserve it." Evelyn turned to him, her expression soft, yet filled with depth. "You don't need to thank me, Jonathan," she said gently. "The change came from you. I just helped you see the path." He smiled, but there was more he needed to say, something that had been weighing on him for weeks. His heart pounded. He had spent so much of his life running from emotions like this. But now, he knew he couldn't hide from it any longer. Taking a deep breath, he spoke. "Evelyn," he said, his voice hesitant but firm. I can't keep pretending. The truth is, I'm in love with you." The words hung between them. Evelyn's eyes widened slightly, her breath hitching. Jonathan's heart pounded as he waited for her response. At that moment, everything had changed. Jonathan felt his heartbeat quicken, afraid that revealing his feelings had been a mistake. But instead of pulling away, Evelyn smiled softly, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "I love you too, Jonathan," she confessed, her voice filled with sincerity. His breath caught as she continued. "I've felt this way for a while, but I was afraid of how it might change everything we've built together." Jonathan let out a relieved laugh, one filled with emotion. "I felt the same way," he admitted. "But I can't keep pretending these feelings don't exist. I don't want to just be your partner at work. I want to be with you in every way." Evelyn nodded, her smile growing. "I want that too. I think we're finally ready for something more." Still sitting side by side, they instinctively leaned in. Jonathan felt his heart race as Evelyn's lips met his in a gentle yet deep kiss. In that moment, all barriers fell. It was pure connection, one built on trust, admiration, and love. As they pulled away, he wrapped his arms around her in a warm embrace, sealing their decision to move forward together. From that day on, their relationship naturally blossomed. They began spending more time together outside of work, exploring the city, sharing dinners, enjoying moments that had nothing to do with business. Every conversation brought them closer, revealing how perfectly they complemented each other. At work, they remained professional, ensuring their relationship didn't interfere with their responsibilities. But the people around them noticed, the way their eyes lit up when they spoke, the unspoken understanding between them. Though they had fallen in love, their dedication to the project remained their top priority. But it was also clear that their love fueled their passion for their work, making them even stronger together. As months passed, the project thrived beyond expectations. The community flourished, with participants finding new job opportunities and rediscovering hope for the future. With the success of the initiative, plans to expand into other regions began to take shape, and the company gained national recognition for its ethical and sustainable impact. The board, once skeptical of Jonathan's leadership, now fully supported his vision. In a board meeting, Mr. Haynes, who had always been one of his toughest critics, addressed him directly. "Jonathan, you've proven that change is possible," he said. "This project is a success, and much of that is because of your commitment and vision. I'm proud to say you are a true leader now." Jonathan nodded, humbled by the words. He glanced at Evelyn sitting beside him and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He knew without her, none of this would have been possible. Outside of work, their love continued to deepen. Jonathan had never felt this way before. He had spent so much of his life chasing success, but now he realized that real fulfillment came from sharing it with someone who truly mattered. One sunny afternoon, as they walked through a quiet park, he gently took Evelyn's hand and stopped. Looking into her eyes, he spoke from the heart. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he admitted, emotion thick in his voice. "You've changed my life, Evelyn, and I want to spend the rest of it making you happy." Evelyn's eyes filled with joyful tears. "I want that too, Jonathan," she whispered. "You're not the same man I met at the start. You've become someone even greater, and I love you for who you are." Jonathan smiled, his heart full, and kissed her softly beneath the golden afternoon sky. As time went on, their journey continued, both in love and in leadership. The company became a shining example of ethical business and social responsibility, setting a new standard for how businesses could drive positive change. Together, Jonathan and Evelyn took on co-leadership roles, ensuring the impact of their work reached even more communities. They weren't just known as successful leaders, but as an inspiring couple, proof that love, integrity, and dedication could truly transform lives. The company received awards, media recognition, and national praise. But for Jonathan and Evelyn, the greatest reward wasn't in accolades. It was in seeing lives changed, families restored, and futures rebuilt. Because of what they had started together. Months later, in a small, intimate ceremony, Jonathan and Evelyn exchanged vows. Surrounded by friends, colleagues, and community members whose lives they had helped transform, they promised not only their love to each other, but also their commitment to a greater purpose. Their vows weren't just words of romance. They were promises to continue working side by side, leading with their hearts, and leaving behind a legacy far greater than themselves. That night, as they danced under the stars, Jonathan reflected on how much his life had changed. The man who once sought success at all costs now understood. True success came from building something with meaning, with purpose, with the woman he loved. And so, together, they began a new chapter. Not just as partners in business, but as partners in life. A love story built on transformation, trust, and the belief that together they could change the world. Do you think Evelyn made the right choice in forgiving Jonathan? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories.